2025 Mazda CX-5 Turbo Signature top trim, and we've done a full dedicated review linked below. But today we're talking 5 things I love and hate about the CX-5, coming from a 2023 CX-50 Turbo Premium Plus owner, and that is the top trim of the CX-50 compared to this, the top trim of the CX-5. So first thing is that the wireless charger here actually works. In the CX-5, we have the wireless charger right underneath this center cubby, and even though I've gone to the dealership and gotten it replaced, the wireless charger in my CX-50 just doesn't work, whereas here in the CX-5, it does. And actually will maintain the charge while I drive. It's not going to slide around, not going to have these thrown up errors and such that occur in my CX-50. And the first thing I don't like about the CX-5 is that the parking view cameras, it has 360 cam, just like my CX-50, but you can see that the camera quality seems to be a prior gen. It's not as, there's a lot more noise, it feels like it's lower resolution. The camera in the CX-50 is notably better for both the 360 and the front facing and the rear facing. Next thing I love about the CX-5 is, in the 2025 model year, this also applies to the CX-50, but I have a 2023. In these newer Mazda products, they do have lane centering. Mine only has lane keep assist, so that means I need to be steering, and if I start veering out to the edge of the lane, it'll vibrate the steering wheel and bump me back a little bit, but it won't actually keep me centered. And in the 2025, for both the CX-5 and CX-50, and I think even in the 2024 actually, you do get lane centering, but it is only at lower speeds. If you go on highway speeds, it's not lane centering, it is only lane keep. But at lower speeds, I think maybe like 40 miles an hour and below, stop and go, which is when it's gonna be very helpful for reducing fatigue. That's the only time you'll be getting your lane centering. Next thing I'm not a fan of is that you do not get a panoramic sunroof like you do in the CX-50. This is a much smaller sunroof, whereas in the CX-50, it's essentially twice the size. It does have that center beam, but still a much more open, airy feel when you have that completely open. And that cover is also motorized in the CX-50, whereas here it's manual. Next thing I love about the CX-5 is that it has more comfortable seats. The CX-50 seats are not as comfortable as these. Although the CX-50 seats aren't as bad as you think, they just require a little bit of break-in. When you first get in, it's gonna feel quite firm on the bottom seat cushion, but over time, you wear it in a little bit, it will become more comfortable, but I still think that just right out the gate, this is notably more comfortable. No break-in really needed. Next thing I don't like about the CX-5 is this older infotainment dial. It is a narrower, or I should say a smaller and taller center dial with these 5 buttons all around. Whereas the newer CX-50 is the newer gen, you have this lower, larger diameter center dial, and then 4 quadrants. The iconography, the way it feels, it's clearly a newer, better designed piece of tech. It's like an evolution of this. This is still good, don't get me wrong, but the CX-50's is certainly better. The next thing I love about the CX-5 are the inputs. Now in the CX-50, the steering in that first model year, in the 2023, was particularly heavy, and they actually changed it for the 24 model year to be lighter, and the 25 is the same. In the 2023, I love the steering. It has so much feel and feedback, and it is nice and heavy, and as someone who drives a lot of sports cars, I love that. It is excellent, excellent steering. Better than any CUV has any right to be, right? But the downside of that is that the inputs aren't all congruent. While the steering is very sporty, the throttle and brakes feel more similar to the CX-5, in that they are less sporty. They feel a little bit more like a standard, commuter car. That's not a bad thing. You actually get used to it. But in the CX-5, all the inputs are beautifully weighted and they're all congruent. The steering doesn't feel more sporty than anything else. It's still very direct. It doesn't have as much weighting or as much feedback as in my CX-50, but the inputs all being one-to-one here are a little bit more natural and don't require much adjustment. I don't think anyone's gonna have any issues with any of these inputs. The next thing I like about the CX-5 is that the interior, at least to some people, feels a little bit more roomy and airy simply because it's slightly taller than the CX-50. Now the CX-50, compared to the CX-5, it's wider, longer, and less tall. It's shorter. So it's almost like you make this a little bit more sporty, you get the CX-50 in terms of dimensions. So the good thing for the CX-5 is that it is going to be a little bit more airy in the cabin because you have that additional vertical height, but you're losing some of that width. So it depends on what you're more sensitive to, the height or the width of the cabin. Now the downside, and what I don't like about the CX-5, is that because it has that 2.5 inches narrower track width to the wheels, and also the 2.5 inches narrower interior as a result, but also a shorter wheelbase by 4.5 inches, you do actually get a notable difference in terms of the plantedness. Not when you're driving on the highway necessarily. When you're pushing in the corners, it's taller and narrower, so you don't have quite the same level of plantedness as in the CX-50. And because the wheelbase is, again, 4.5 inches shorter, when you do get on the highway, the ride comfort of the CX-50 with the longer wheelbase has a slight advantage, except it's kind of neutralized because the CX-50 has a torsion beam rear suspension, whereas this has independent multi-link rear suspension. This has the better suspension architecture, but the CX-50 has a longer wheelbase and a wider track width. You're gonna feel that more when you're pushing it harder, especially on the turns. Most people are not gonna notice a difference between these two, especially when you're doing regular driving, but as always, we're talking to the nuance. And the final thing I do not like about the CX-5 is that it's simply not as sexy as the CX-50. The interior, I think, is a little bit more of a dated design language. It's still very nice, especially with this new, what do they call it, a layered grain textured wood. I think genuine layered wood texture is what they call it. The Katura Napa leather, which is new for 2025, it's a nice interior. And while the interior of the CX-50 is far from perfect, you have that horror movie stitching, you got that weird vent right in the middle, the interior feels newer gen to me, and more so, the exterior feels far more unique and appealing and attractive than the exterior of the CX-5, in my opinion. But my friends, let me know what you agree or disagree with a comment down below. Much love, and I'll see you in the next one.